Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad, or maybe good afternoon or evening, depending where you're joining us from. You're joining us for our live launch coverage of China's next crew mission to the brand new Chinese space station. This should be the first time that they ever have had 6 astronauts on board the station. The three Chinese astronauts are now all strapped in on the Long March rocket, counting down now just over 90 minutes and counting until the expected liftoff of their Long March 2F/G rocket from Launch Area 4 at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in China. This is your first time here, though. Welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad. Here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. And you're looking at some incredible live views here from around the launch site as the closeout crews are preparing to close the hatch on that fairing that keeps the astronauts' capsule safe on the inside. But some incredible kind of technical views showing them going through that process in that clean area as we count down towards launch. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. We got a bunch of new stuff coming up in the new year, and we can't wait for you all to be able to see that. And if you haven't yet, if you are an iPhone user, make sure you head on over to the App Store, search the Launchpad. Our TLP app is now available with our full launch calendar, space news, and so much more. We got a bunch of new features coming out over the coming months. Make sure you get that. For our Android friends, it's coming soon. We're working on the last few things to get that out to you, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you stay tuned for that, but we can only do that thanks so much to your generous support. As it is a China launch, there won't be a whole lot of commentary provided from the Chinese side for us to be able to go, so we're going to be kind of sitting back and watching as we go through the countdown ahead of today's launch. But if you guys have questions, you can send those to us in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll be working on answering those to the best of our ability. To get us started, though, why don't you let us know in the chat where you're watching from? While you do so, make sure you take a second and engage that like button. It really does help us out, and consider sharing out the stream on your social medias as well, as we now count down 1 hour, 32 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting until launch of 3 more Chinese astronauts. Depot Dolphin, the Android app, it's 6 months out. Not 6 months. 6 weeks? 4 weeks? Maybe less. We've got it in hand. We're going through some last editing for it, so hopefully sooner than that. Not 6 months, though.
First, a backup astronaut and then be selected on a real manned mission.
Usually, they should have a course of about 2 years, but for the certain missions, they will also be specially trained, and the enhanced training will be conducted. And also, finally, a formal crew and also a backup crew will be chosen. If anything wrong happened, for instance, such as
T-minus 15 minutes.
Great. So at this moment, you can see that all the rotational platform has already been opened. We can see the whole body of our Long March 2F.
Let's take this opportunity, Professor, and talk about that.
15 minutes countdown.
That Long March 2F rocket obviously consists of different parts. We have 4 boosters at the bottom of the rocket, and then we have the stage 1 and stage 2, and then the spacecraft.
Quite right. The Long March 2F is a 2.5 stage rocket dedicated for launch payload into the low Earth orbit. The capability, if there are 2 versions of this Long March 2F, one for crewed missions and one for unmanned missions. For the crewed missions, the capability is more than 8.9 tons. And for unmanned missions, the capability is more than 8.6 tons. Because you know that for a crewed mission, we must have an emergency escape system. The shape is different. And for this, as I mentioned, this Long March 2F is the only human-rated launch vehicle of China, which means that the reliability of this launch vehicle is much higher than a common launch vehicle. The rudiment of this launch vehicle is Long March 2E. The maiden flight is in 1990, but after the establishment of our manned space program, there are so many improvements on the Long March 2E, and then finally we get this Long March 2F. At the initial stage, the reliability of this launch vehicle can reach to 0.97. It is already very high, but still not safe enough for our astronauts. We added a malfunction detection system on board this Long March 2F rocket. 0.97, the reliability means that for every 100 launch, maybe there are 3 times the rocket have some dangerous things happen. But you know that this is not safe enough for the astronauts. And then we added an emergency escape system to this launch vehicle. And with the help of this emergency escape system, the safety for the astronauts can reach to 0.997, which means for 1,000 launch, only 3 times, maybe the life of our astronauts will be threatened. So this is already safe enough. But still, for all these years, we have so many improvements on this launch vehicle, and the performance of this launch vehicle is also improved. The safety of this launch vehicle is also greatly improved. Moreover, you see that the launch of the Long March 2F is to send the Shenzhou spacecraft to dock with the Tiangong space station. The basic requirement why we choose this moment to launch the rocket is because that only when the launch site rotates along with the Earth, when it passing through the orbital plane of our Tiangong space station, only at this moment we can launch it. The basic requirement is that the launch vehicle must send the spacecraft into the same orbital plane of our Tiangong. So that is the reason why we choose a 0 launch window. The accuracy of the liftoff moment must be less than 1 second. So this is the initial stage in about 2011 during the Shenzhou 8 mission. We achieved this 0 launch window. But in all these years, it is also continually improved because you know that we have some design margin, which means that the capability of the launch vehicle is stronger than required. So with this margin, we return the 0 launch window to a natural launch window, which means if there are anything error happened, we can use this capability to adjust, and then it can reach to the proper position and speed. So this is also an important improvement.
Understood, Professor. Thank you. I'll be back with you. The Long March 2F rocket is China's only launch vehicle for manned space missions. Compared with other rockets, Long March 2F has an additional escape tower. As Professor Yang was just explaining, it's also known as the astronaut's life tower. CGTN's Wu Lei talked with the chief designer of the escape tower engine, and he has this report.
The safety of astronauts is the most important aspect of all manned missions.
But what if the rocket fails during its flight period? Chinese scientists have developed an escape tower which is installed at the top of the rocket. In case of an emergency, its own engines will kick in and drag the spaceship away from danger. We are now at one of the assembly buildings at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. This is a real escape tower now standing by for the Long March 2F Y-16 rocket. It's only the main part, but the total length of this escape tower is over 8 meters. Shi Hongbin has been developing the escape tower engine system for over 20 years. He says China started to develop the escape tower back in 1992. After years of research and hundreds of ground tests, Chinese scientists conducted a comprehensive successful test launch of the escape tower and the rocket in 1998.
The escape tower starts working at an altitude of 0 to 39 kilometers and between 0 to 120 seconds after the launch. It has a main escape engine, a separate engine, and 4 engines in a control system. So the entire escape tower has 6 engines.
The current escape tower has been quite stable over the past 20 years, as China is developing its next generation rockets for manned lunar missions. More advanced escape towers also on the way.
We are now upgrading the escape tower. The new tower will be stronger as the new spaceship is larger. So we will use a variable thrust engine to make the escape system more reliable and safe.
China sent its first astronaut Yang Liwei into space in 2003, and since then, Shi Hongbin and his team have been in Jiuquan, helping guarantee the life support system of astronauts during each manned mission.
It is a matter of astronauts' life during the mission. It's better if they don't ever need to use our escape tower, but if they do, they will get the service of the highest standard.
China's space station will be fully completed by the end of 2022 and will host more astronauts, scientists, and engineers. The escape tower will continuously play a key role in manned space missions and deep space exploration. Wu Lei, CGTN, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
We're now about 8 minutes until liftoff. I'm now joined in the studio by Professor Yang Jiuquan. Professor, talk to us about what's happening in those last minutes. Just now, we saw some minibuses pull over, so the evacuation of ground staff obviously happened already.
You may notice, although all the rotational platform has already been opened, but still there are some arms, some arms in orange color, very close to the launch vehicle. In these arms, we have cables and pipes. So still, we have, as Yan Song has already mentioned, we have the electricity provided from the launch complex to the spacecraft. And only about 1 to 2 minutes before the launch, before liftoff, we will switch the power supply from the ground to the batteries inside. So only at this moment we can unplug all these connections. And also, you know that our Long March 2F launch vehicle adopted a hyperbolic propulsion system, which means that it is in common temperature. Actually speaking, it is UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrazine, and also this as a fuel, and also nitrogen tetroxide as the oxidizer. This is very convenient for use because it is in common temperature. Oh, we can see the camera inside the re-entry capsule. We can see the 3 astronauts.
They've been waiting inside the cabin for over an hour.
Yes, it's already near the T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
They do seem very ready, very calm until that happens.
So you can see, as I've already mentioned, their seats are specially designed, and with this shape of the seats, they can afford a very great impact. And also, this will be the most comfortable position during the liftoff and the landing.
Because after all, they're going to be there literally for hours, you know, between the waiting time and then the liftoff and the docking and the rendezvous.
The waiting time is not a big deal, but you know that during the 10 minutes of the liftoff and also during the landing, there will be G forces about 3 to 4 times greater than our ordinary gravity. So that will be a great challenge, not very comfortable for them. And also, during this process, there are also intensive vibration. So they must have, you know, that during the first flight of Mr. Yang Liwei, the vibration is even more intensive, and he even thinks that he will lose his lives. So we optimized our the flight procedure, and in the Shenzhou 6 mission experienced by Mr. Fei Jinlong, it is much more comfortable.
T minus 5 minutes. We're waiting and watching, monitoring the liftoff of the Long March 2F carrier rocket, which will send 3 Chinese astronauts into space. This is the last manned mission before the construction of China's own space station, the Tiangong.
And the next step will be the switching of the control from the ground to the onboard computer. The onboard computer will be in charge of the whole launch vehicle next.
A nerve-wracking last few minutes until we see the ignition and then the liftoff of the carrier rocket. We'll be monitoring the whole 600 seconds, I believe, the initial 10 minutes after liftoff.
It's about 10 minutes. You see that during this process, Mr. Fei Jinlong is still reading the handbook. So he will be more and more familiar with the normal procedure and abnormal procedure.
That's the gentleman sitting in the middle. He's the commander of this mission, a veteran astronaut who flew his first manned flight 17 years ago, trained under China's first generation of astronauts. With him are his crew members. First manned flight for both of them.
Yes, and you may notice that just between the seats of astronauts, there are also several packages. Not only the packages for their mission, but also this to balance the position of the center of the mass of the re-entry capsule. It is also carefully designed.
The cargo you mentioned in orange, right? That's
exactly.
In their return capsule.
Countdown in 3 minutes.
T minus 3 minutes.
We also have cameras mounted on the rotational arms to monitoring the unplugging procedure to ensure the reliability. Still, at this moment, we believe that we still have cables connected to the launch vehicle.
Yeah, you can see the arms are still tightly around that carrier rocket.
Exactly.
When will they be retracted?
And according to your colleagues, that the wind is not so very strong. So although it is in extremely low temperature, but the wind is not strong, so it is good for the launch.
Wind speed obviously is a much bigger factor than temperature.
Quite right. It is a quite serious problem to consider.
We are literally just minutes away from the liftoff of that Long March 2F carrier rocket, which will send 3 Chinese astronauts into space. Their previous mission, the Shenzhou 14 mission, the crew members are still inside the China space station. They will be working together in the space station for a period of 5 days. So it will be the first crew in-cabin, in-station handover between 2 different crews. A historic moment indeed, which we will bring to you here on CGTN.
There are 4 engines on the first stage. The 4 engines called YF-27. Each have a thrust more than 75 tons. And also there are similar engines for each boosters. We have 1 engine. So during the liftoff, we have 8 engines. They will ignite simultaneously.
各号注意，我是领号，1分钟准备。
1 minute countdown.
各号注意
Yeah, T minus 1 minute. Really, any moment now before we see the ignition of that carrier rocket.
And next, we will see the rotation of the arms away from the body of the rocket.
Yes.
Great,
The
unplugged.
arms are moving now. They are being retracted to release the carrier rocket.
30秒。 20秒。20秒。10、9、8、7、6、
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
酒泉程序转弯。
Three Chinese astronauts
Okay.
into space.
Pitch over.
Okay, the pitch over happening
酒泉
about
开始，跟踪
12
正常。
seconds into the flight.
The tower is already cleared. We can see the white flames very bright in the night.
青山 USB 雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
The ground station reports that the tracking is normal and the status is normal. Oh, this is the camera mounted on the launch vehicle.
雷达
Launch
跟
vehicle.
踪正常。
And we will continue to hear those tracking data that will tell us how the flight is going. We'll continue to hear them throughout the process.
So the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the emergency escape top about 2 minutes after liftoff.
飞行正常。
At this moment, we can see that this is a video mounted on the body of the maybe the second stage, and we can see 2 of the boosters and their flames,
It's
and
got-
we can see the cabin inside the re-entry capsule, and the 3 astronauts are in very good status. We cannot see the vibration because the camera is vibrating together with the cabin.
That's right. The 3 taikonauts do seem to be in a good state.
And each of the booster have a rocket engine with a thrust about 75 tons. And when it is reached the supersonic status, it will experience the largest aerodynamic forces called the Max Q. So at this moment, it will be supersonic and will be safer and safer. Oh, great! The jettisoning of the
酒
emergency
泉
escape
逃逸塔
tower.
分离。
The escape towers have come off. This is 2 minutes into the flight.
Exactly.
青
And
山
then
USB
will be
雷
the
达
separation
跟
of
踪
the
正
4
常，
boosters.
遥测信号正常。
We're monitoring to see the 4 boosters coming off.
双程光学雷达跟踪正常。
I mean, you know, the taikonauts do seem to be doing fine, but this is the part where they feel a lot of discomfort, and as you can see, the
酒泉助
boosters
推剂分离。
are
Great.
coming off.
You can see a cross of the 4
酒
boosters.
泉1、2级分离。1、2级分离。
And the first stage has already been separated.
In the first stage of the carrier rocket,
And the second stage will work much longer than the first stage. It has 1 main engine. It is a vacuum version of the first stage engine. It is similar, but with a large nozzle.
遥测信号正常。
And also, the second stage have 4 vernier engines with smaller thrust, but they are rotatable. We can see on the left of screen is the camera mounted on the launch vehicle. This one is the camera inside the
蔚
payload
蓝发
fairing.
现目标。
the taikonauts are flipping through their manuals again. They seem to be really fine.
Great,
Something else
the
is
payload
coming.
fairing is separated.
That's the
双程
payload
方向
fairing.
有照。
The payload fairing is what protects the spacecraft.
Yes.
探员发现目标。
You can see the beautiful flames of the launch vehicle.
What do you make of the taikonauts at this
Shenzhou,
point? I mean,
USB,
the fact that they're
跟踪正常，
flipping through their
遥测信号
manuals
正
seems to
常。
suggest they're doing
They are just
very well.
reading the parameters on the control panel and to judge
双程
whether
光学
anything goes
雷达
right.
跟踪正常。
the ground staff reports that the tracking is normal.
渭南 USB 雷达跟踪正常。
What are we
遥测
looking
信号
at
正常
now, Professor? This
So
is
this
from
this is a video captured by the ground station.
太原雷达跟踪
It
正
is
常
an optical
遥测信号
camera.
正常
Okay. So the tracking units are, some of them are from stationary units, others are from ships that moved into position prior to the launch of the
Exactly.
mission.
So along the downrange trajectory, we have multiple ground stations, including those with the telescopes or optical telescopes to take videos like this. And also we have the readers. We have the readers to monitoring the. Oh, we can see on the left is the camera mounted on the rear part of the second stage. So it is monitoring the working of the rocket engines.
And the main engine of the second stage will shut down as we go further into the flight. Is that what's going to happen next?
Exactly. So I've already been discussed that the payload fairing has already been separated. So the next critical step will be shutdown of the main engine. But at this moment, theoretically speaking, it is already in orbit, but maybe not accurate enough. So we will use the 4 vernier engines, the 4 smaller engines, to adjust its trajectory.
遥测信号正常。
So another ground station reports that the status is normal.
双城光学雷达跟踪正常。
The Shenzhou ground station reports that it is normal.
青岛发现目标渭南 USB 雷达跟踪正
I
常。
mean, we've done
遥测
this so
信
many
号正常
times, but it just doesn't get less nervous for all of us watching on Earth here.
Yes, we just heard the voice that Qingdao has already captured the vehicle.
正常。
It is already close to Qingdao. And the separation of the spacecraft and the launch vehicle will be in the to the east of the China's sea coast.
I mean, Qingdao is on China's east coast. The Kira rocket lifted off from the northwest of China.
Yes.
In a few minutes' time, it moved from northwest of China to the east coast of the country.
And before the end of the working of the rocket, the altitude will be about 200 kilometers.
Have they passed the period where they feel most discomfort now? I mean, for the taikonauts?
Exactly. You see that the most inconvenient part is during the flight of the first stage, because you know that because of the aerodynamic forces, there are many intensive vibration. But at this moment, you know that they've already in a vacuum condition. The payload fairing has already separated.
金山 USB 跟踪正常。
Another ground station reports that the USB and also the another
双
data
城
link
光学
is
雷
normal.
达跟踪正常。
青岛飞
I
船
wonder
双
what
保
they're
安
thinking right now,
青岛飞船双保安船
especially for Mr. Deng, who
渭
waited
南 USB 雷达跟踪
so
正常
long,
遥测信
over
号
2
正常
decades for this time. It's finally happening, a dream come true for him.
太原雷达跟踪正常遥测信号正常。
Great. Main
The main
engine has
engine.
shut down.
Shutting down.
It's already in orbit, but maybe not accurate enough. So the 4 vernier engine will adjust its trajectory precisely. And we can see on the top right of the screen is the camera, an infrared camera, taking the videos of the vehicle.
青岛 USB 雷达跟踪正常遥测信号正常。
And if all things go well, we're looking at the separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket, which will happen any minute now.
You can see the 3 crew members are very relaxed now.
Smiles on their faces
Exactly.
as they have passed that most difficult period of time. A big relief, I would imagine, for all 3 of them.
As I emphasized, actually speaking, they've already in orbit.
But they're now adjusting
The accuracy.
the accuracy of the trajectory.
Yes. So the next step will be the shutdown of the 4 vernier engines.
As we mentioned, the main engine was shut down just a few moments ago.
you know, that's the engine during the liftoff, the thrust is 75 tons. But you know, that's the second stage, although it uses the same type of engine, but it is a vacuum version. And the thrust is bigger because it is vacuum condition. Changjiang 6 means Yuanwang 6 space tracking ship in the Pacific Ocean. So it is already gets the data
They have
link.
now identified the object.
Exactly.
Where is this camera? This is
A camera mounted on the top of the launch vehicle towards the spacecraft, to the front.
Okay, that is the successful separation of a spacecraft from the carrier rocket. You hear a round of applause from ground control because this is a critical step indicating initial success of the flight.
And what we see now is the 3D animation in the flight control center. We should emphasize that this 3D animation is driven by the real data received from the telemetry data.
So it's a real-time update, 3D animation indicating
the position, the velocity, the attitude of the vehicle is real status.
right.
And I should also emphasize they've already in zero
Is that a
gravity.
pen floating around in the
Yes,
capsule?
quite right. But you know, we China usually we don't have the tradition to have a zero-G indicator. Usually our astronauts use their pen to demonstrate this zero-G.
We're now 6 minutes into the flight, and the separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket has happened, indicating initial success of the flight.
Let's remember this moment. Just now with the separation of the second stage, we China already have 6 astronauts in orbit.
Six astronauts in orbit now. They will meet and greet in just a handful of hours. We will bring you special coverage on that as well. One thing to be sure is that the Shenzhou 15 crew will be very warmly welcomed by their Shenzhou 14 colleagues.
We heard the voice of the Yuanwang 6 or the Changjiang 6, the space tracking ship. The tracking is normal. And the next step will be the unfolding of the solar panels mounted on the propulsion module. The Shenzhou spaceship adopted a 3-module design. On the rear part is the propulsion module, which has 2 solar wings. The Beijing Flight Control Center has sent the command to unfolding the panel. 天路 means 天链 data relay satellite.
It takes a minute between the sending of the command and then the opening of the panels.
Yes. Great.
The solar panel has unfolded and opened, prompting another applause from nervous ground staff watching every step of the flight. I mean, this is another crucial step indicating that things have gone well. And would you say that the spaceship is now pretty much in orbit, or is it still adjusting?
It's already in a right orbit. The next step, we will, based on the telemetry data, we will measure or determine the orbit and evaluate each parameter to evaluate whether to judge it is accurate enough. And only when it is accurate enough can be announced that it is a successful launch. Because you know that's the purpose of this launch, this spacecraft is to rendezvous and dock with the Tiangong space station. So the orbit must be accurate enough.
Professor, remind us again how much time it will take before the docking and rendezvous happens.
Well, it depends on the arrangement of the plan. You know that just several days before we conducted the Tianzhou 5 mission, and it only used 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yes, that makes the world record.
But that was unmanned cargo spacecraft. This is different.
But the technology is similar.
But it can't be done in 2 hours.
Yes, you know that, but maybe not necessary. You know that the 6 hours is already short enough. So it depends on the arrangement.
神舟15号，我是北京。
We're now, of course, waiting to hear from official announcement from ground command and control to see whether the launch and flight so far has been a success. There will be an official announcement. We're waiting for that to happen as well.
神舟15号报告，飞船座舱大气环境正常，航天员感觉良好，完毕。
They are feeling well.
北京明白。
The taikonauts have just told ground control that they are feeling well, and they've been told that they can open
神舟15号明白。
the face windows. Is that what's going to happen?
It depends on their, you know, that they will check every status of the spacecraft, and they will, as you mentioned, they will open their face window of their helmet sooner or later.
Let's see if we can get a visual on them.
天路跟踪正常。
They've already done that, right?
Great. Because the most dangerous part has already been passed.
Wonderful. That's always good to know.
As we've already discussed, the IVA spacesuit they were wearing is to protect them.
长江6号跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。长江6号跟踪正常。
Changjiang 6号 means Yuanwang 6 space tracking ship.
Yeah, that's the flight time on your screen right now, 956 seconds into the flight. The latest critical step has been the opening of the solar panels.
So next, the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft will conduct a rendezvous, maybe several orbit maneuvers to meet with the Tiangong space station.
Is it possible for the Shenzhou 14 crew to watch this happen from the space station? Is it technologically possible?
Technically speaking, it is possible, but it also depends on the plan. You know that, as we've already discussed, if the rendezvous, time interval is short enough, they can see the launch. This already has happened in the International Space Station. You may watch it on the social media. The video taken by the astronauts on board the ISS of the launch of the Soyuz spacecraft or the progress.
根据北京实时轨道与遥测数据监视判断，神舟15号飞船已进入近地点高度200公里，远地点高度361.9公里，倾角41.3度，周期1小时30分钟的预定轨道。飞船座舱环境正常，航天员状态良好。北京出轨根数及分离点参数已向各方向发出。东风。
东风收到。
华山。
华山收到。
江阴。江阴收到。长江6号。
长江6号收到。
Ground control has just reported that things are going well with the flight. The taikonauts are doing fine in their cabin, in their capsule. All indicators point to a successful launch and a successful flight.
The Flight Control Center, the commander reported the orbital parameters of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. You may notice that the perigee or the lowest altitude is 200 kilometers, but the highest point or the apogee is 361 kilometers, lower than our Tiangong space station. This is because you know that the Shenzhou 15 is a chasing vehicle. It should be lower than the target. With lower orbit, it rotates faster. So it is chasing the Tiangong space station closer and closer.
If only we could see that process as well. That would be fascinating to watch.
Exactly. And just now, the Tianlu or the Tianlian data relay satellite just reports the data link is normal. So we can have a continuous coverage establishing the data link between the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft with the ground stations. And on the front of the 3D animation, just at the front of our orbital module, you may notice that there is a docking mechanism. This is called the APAS, or the Androgynous Peripheral Attach System. And other countries also adopt this system.
This is the port that will be docking with
Exactly.
the Tiangong?
Yes. So in the future, if we want to have some international cooperation of higher level, I mean the visit of the foreign spacecraft, either a crewed spaceship or a cargo spaceship, technically speaking, it is also possible.
So it's compatible, like it's potentially compatible.
Potentially possible. There are many technical
天路跟踪正常
details.
遥测信号正常。天路跟踪
I
正
was
常
going to ask you about. Yeah, I was going to ask you about international cooperation because with the International Space Station, we've seen very close and lasting cooperation between astronauts from different countries. China hasn't ruled out that possibility. What does international cooperation on China's own space station look like for you, Professor?
According to the announcements of China Manned Space Agency, the 9 experiments raised by 17 countries, they've already been chosen, and the devices and also other equipments for these kind of experiments has already been made by other countries. And next year, our crew on board our Tiangong space station will conducting these experiments. So this is the first cooperation with other countries of Tiangong space station. And these experiments were chosen by the China Manned Agency and UNOSA, or United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. So this is the start of our cooperation with other countries. But this is the lowest level.
Foreign proposed experiments conducted by Chinese astronauts actually in
Exactly.
the space station.
So the next level will be the visit of the foreign crew to
How
China.
soon could that happen, Professor?
Will be, I believe they will happen maybe within the next several years.
Okay, next several years, because obviously you're going to have to syndicate
天路跟踪
training.
正常
Exactly.
You're
遥
going
测
to
信
have
号正
to.
常
And also the
天
foreign
路跟踪正
astronauts
常
should
遥测
learn
信号正
Chinese.
常
I believe they will. But our astronauts speak a fair amount of English, I would suppose.
During an international flight mission, maybe probably they will learn English. But Mr. Ye Guangfu can speak English very well.
Because he trained abroad for in
He-
Italy, was it?
In Europe for a cave diving, exploration training. And Miss Savancha Cristoforetti, with Chinese name Shasha, and also Mr. Martin Moria, was also Miss Chinese name Ma Tian, was trained in our in Yantai during the rescue training. You can see this is a 2-dimensional animation in the flight control center. So we can see the red point is the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft.
What is happening at this point, Professor? I mean, the ground control needs some verification of this being a complete success. What are they looking at?
天路跟踪正常遥测信号正常
This further into
You may
the flight.
notice at this moment the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft, according to this 2-dimensional demonstration, it is just beneath the Tianlian 104 satellite. So just we heard the voice that the Tianlian has just set up the normal data link between the satellite, the data relay satellite, and the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. So all these communications will confirm the real status of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. And also, as we were already seeing, that they are evaluating the accuracy of its orbital parameters. And when we judge that it is already accurate enough, the commander of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center will announce the success, and we can see the big red screens.
So it's an ongoing process. You need a multitude of indicators that are constantly sending you the signal, the message indicating success.
Yeah. We measure the accuracy of the orbital parameters with multiple sensors. We have the inertial measurement units on board our Shenzhou 15. We also have our Beidou navigation satellite receiver And also we have the other measures to measure the velocity position of our Shenzhou 15. Mr. Deng Qingming has fulfilled his 25 years of dream to go to outer space.
That is incredible. This must be an very memorable night for him and his family. I wonder if it's the same as he imagined this would be, because he was the backup a lot of the times. And when he watched his colleagues lift off, and now he's experienced it himself, I wonder what's
just
going
before this
through
mission,
his mind
Mr.
right
Deng
now.
Qingming has already become a grandfather, and her daughter is our colleagues.
Yes, her daughter became, followed in the footsteps of her father, essentially.
So I believe next the commander will announce the success of the mission. I've also been to this hall in the flight control center. You may notice that there is a computer, there is a screen in front of everybody, and you can read each of the parameter from this screen.
When was that? When was that trip? When was that?
In 2019.
A full room of ground control and command staff nervously watching the flight so far. Everything seems to have gone really well.
Yeah.
We're waiting for some last minute verification before the officials announce their assessment of the flight.
The verification of the accuracy of the orbital parameters.
I mean, the accuracy, as Professor Yang explained, is everything in determining the success of the docking and the rendezvous, because this is constantly chasing the Tiangong space station.
And if everything is normal, next, the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft will conduct. Great, the Tianlian data rate link has already been established. And it will switch to a autonomous rendezvous mode. So the Shenzhou 15 will conduct the orbit maneuver based on its own.
What will the Tianlian satellite do once the docking and rendezvous happens? Will it still be in use?
Quite right. You know that we have the communication link between the Tianlian not only with Shenzhou 15, but also with the Tiangong space station and the. Okay, the thrusters will be tested. So the ground station, the ground commander remind the astronauts to keep their safe belt fastened. You know, there are a lot of rocket engines on the propulsion module, so they must test these kind of engines. We have 4 main engines in the propulsion module. Each have a thrust of 2,500 Newton. And we also have other engines for the attitude control and also translation. They will control the attitude in pitch, yaw, and roll direction, and also have the translation engines to move the spacecraft to front, back, left, right, up, and down. So these are very necessary requirements to the rendezvous and the docking with the space station. So these engines are so critical for the rendezvous and docking procedure. So that is the reason why the commander will ask to test these engines and remind the astronauts to fasten their seat belt.
They're laser focused on those manuals again. I just love it when they, move their legs around a little bit, indicating that they're relaxed, they're in a good state. Now that they've passed the most uncomfortable period into the flight.
You can see on the left screen is a camera mounted on the Shenzhou spacecraft. And you can see the bright curve is the horizon of the Earth. It is so beautiful.
That is beautiful. And a lot of first-comers like to snap a picture of the Earth and videos, of course. So we can expect some artworks, photography works from the two newcomers.
You may notice either the camera mounted outside and the camera mounted inside the cabin, we have the very high resolution and very high quality videos. So that is not easy for transmitting all these videos back to the ground station. So this is a high technology. Oh, we can already see the sun. This is a sunrise in orbit.
I mean, these cameras are absolutely important, allowing us to see a real-time process of the flight, and what it captures really reassures us why we're doing this, just to unravel the mysteries of the universe and to broaden our horizons quite literally with man's continuous exploration of this space.
Exactly. So you can see that the astronauts are still reading the manual.
我是北京。根据北京实时遥测数据监视判断，飞船太阳帆板工况正常，按3圈自主原导实施交会对接，后续工作按正常计划实
Please
施。
proceed as
神舟15
the
号。
plan.
So ground staff has just
15号明白。
Shenzhou 15 copy.
informed Shenzhou 15 crew
Huashan copy.
that the spacecraft is doing well, that the panels have opened and are doing well, and things can proceed according to the plan. An automated rendezvous, as Professor Yang was talking about just now.
And based on the information by the ground control center, they will conduct a 3-orbit rendezvous, which means that they will use about 4.5 hours to be closer to the space station.
Authorities at the Jiuquan Launch Center about to declare their assessment of the launch. Let's listen together.
Leaders, comrades, according to the flight data and report from Beijing Aerospace Control Center, Long March 2 FY-15 carrier rocket has sent Shenzhou 15 manned spaceship to the preset orbit. The solar panel has unfolded successfully and is functioning well. Now I declare the launch of Shenzhou 15 manned mission a complete success. Thank you.
The message we were all waiting to hear, a complete success declared of the Shenzhou 15 launch and initial flight.
You can see the big red screen, our tradition.
The big red screen is what we always wanted to see.
When the success is confirmed.
Another beautiful and successful launch of the Shenzhou 15 manned mission into space. We'll keep monitoring what happens there. China's Shenzhou 15 manned spaceflight mission launched Tuesday night from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China's Gobi Desert. Our reporter Zheng Yibing spoke to an expert about the mission and has this report.
Shenzhou 15